The Promises to Freedom Show, a journey to full recovery with Cord Beatty and Kat Hart.
And as promised, we have a very special guest in our studio today.
We want to welcome Michael Marsh. Michael from High Point, North Carolina.
North Carolina, not to be confused with South Carolina.
He's a Zion Healing franchisee for that area, plus the area developer for all of North Carolina with us. Welcome to the show, Michael.
That's correct. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So today, North Carolina, tomorrow, the world.
That's right.
North Carolina, Michael, has some interesting things about it.
We did our homework.
We did our homework on this, and you lived there. Depression rate in North Carolina is at an all-time high, which is great. It is a great opportunity for Zion Healing to roll in there and solve some problems. You know, you guys, right now, you have almost 17% of the adolescent population of your state reports a major depressive disorder. So you can imagine that the adult population is double that. You know,
that's like critical mass. Isn't critical mass like 20% when 20% of the population kind of is there? Yeah. That's considered critical mass. That's really astonishing. Like, it's horrible. But isn't it also, we were talking earlier before you ever rolled into the studio, didn't you say, or were we talking about, it's also one of the highest states in terms of opioid addiction as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, North Carolina ranks as one of the higher states in the U.S. for opioid addiction.
Why? It's such a beautiful state.
Yeah. As far as geographically, we have the mountains and the plains and the coast, and it's truly astonishing that number is so high. If you're not a part of the circle, if you're not within that, it's easy to overlook it and not see it as an issue until it's either brought to your attention via statistically from something that you've looked up or looked forward to, or you have a loved one who has fell victim to circumstances.
The number I read was 28,000 deaths in North Carolina from opioid overdose between 2000 and 2020.
Wow.
It's a gigantic number. Did you find that growing up there? Was it pretty prevalent within your community or your business community? You're a prominent businessman in North Carolina.
Not so much growing up. I also feel like everything has kind of been a warp speed here recently, just from socially to economically to just everything is I feel like is compounding so quickly. And I believe that number is also a number that's compounding so quickly. Mm-hmm. It's not only increased recently, but it's dramatically increased recently. And so I never ran in it, but I also didn't run in any of those circles. I didn't see it because I wasn't looking for it.
Gotcha.
But to say that it wasn't there, obviously you knew someone or you heard of someone. But periodically, from the time that I graduated, it just progressively has seemed to get worse.
Like some of the people you went to school with and that?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I have a personal question for you, and
okay.
you may or may not be able to answer it, or you don't have to answer it. But I'm just wondering, what sort of attracted you to Zion Healing and wanting to reach out to the public and kind of make us better?
Sure. I enjoy telling the story because it's something that I'm passionate about. So I have recently, in the last 5 to 7 years, been on a spiritual journey of my own, a self-awareness journey of my own, a healing journey of my own. A lot of people are suffering from things that they don't even know that they're suffering. So it's almost like you wake up, and once you wake up, you see it everywhere. Uh-huh. And so I've had events in my life that has really woke me up, so to speak, to the patterns and to the subconscious programming that has been so faulty in my decision-making process. And so I've did a lot of personal development, a lot of personal growth from online psychiatrists to books to meditations to you name it.
Awesome.
Whatever I could do to help myself, I wanted to heal because once you become aware of your pain, then it's your job to try to figure out how to fix that. And a lot of people they're not even aware that they're in pain. They just think that's the way life
normal.
It feels
right.
normal. That's the way that life is.
Right.
And I've had some recent events in my life that has happened that almost I feel like it was the straw that broke the camel's back that really.
Okay, can I ask what?
Sure, no problem. So around 2015, so our business was actually going pretty well, pretty decent. My wife and I, we actually just got married, and we had been together for 10 years before that. So we had just got married. We had our first baby that same year. And I believe during that time, we ended up losing a lot of business. So a lot of things were kind of compounding. I ended up we had to move in with my mother and father-in-law. We actually got married and had our first child in a spare bedroom of my mother and father-in-law, which was super, you know, it was like, it was gut-wrenching. You know, I'm grateful. Obviously, we had somewhere to go, but it was gut-wrenching being the provider of that family and losing everything and having to be there. For layman's terms, sweepstakes. Gaming software, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Very volatile business model in certain areas. But we ended up going through some tough times during that time. And so anyways, we had our first child. And then that was in August 2015. And then Christmas came. And Christmas was great. And it was actually the day after Christmas. It had been raining a couple days before, and we were actually on our way to my grandmother's house to do a Christmas dinner and get together. And it was a freak accident. The person in front of me was slammed on brakes, and the person in front of them was turning into a vacant lot. Whenever I took control of the reins and realized what was going on, I tried everything I could in my power to try to avoid the accident, and it ended up put my family at risk. At the time, she was 4 months old, my 4-month-old newborn baby, my new wife, and put them at risk by avoiding this accident. And upon me avoiding that accident, actually put me in direct path with the person in front of us. Oh, wow. And they just kept continuing to pull into this vacant lot as I was in the mud. So I slammed on brakes and I locked up, ended up T-boning them.
Oh my gosh!
And the very next day, the lady died.
Oh, wow.
And
those are traumatic events.
Very traumatic event for me, and for the next 3, 4, 5 years, the court case drew out and continued to and on top of the guilt of just being a part of something like that, and the constant stress and trauma from that event, coupled with the feedback from them legally wanting to they verbalized that they wanted to try to take everything from me. And you got to think at this point in time, I mean, I don't have much, but what I do have was, I'm just married and I just had my first kid. And, so it was just compounding. And that was, I believe, the straw that really broke the camel's back. I went into a deep depression. Yeah. I went into, just a spin cycle. And then, for the couple of years, I was in a deep depression, and I didn't really realize it until one day I woke up and looked back, and I don't even remember living those few years. Yeah.
Wow.
I lost a lot of opportunities with partners, and just life just happened, and I was just existing instead of living. And at that point in time, I said, if no one's going to come and save me, I feel like I'm screaming for help. No one's going to come save me. I'm going to have to do something for myself. So I just dug deep and started reading books and following, like I said, one of my I do like to credit Dr. Nicole LaPara. She's the holistic psychologist. Yeah. She helped me out of some foxholes, and that was just socially, and I just opened my mind, opened my heart to what's possible, right? Because trauma, what I realized is trauma is the same for everybody. People think that trauma is on a scale. There's no scale of what trauma is for people.
Or they think that their trauma is worse than somebody else's trauma. And in actuality, anyone's trauma is as real as it can get, and it comes in 100 different ways. Mm-hmm. And it's all just as devastating as anything else. And
absolutely.
So you hear the word trauma, and your brain goes, well, it must be physical or sexual traumas of some kind. But that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And you just explained a perfect example of what real trauma looks like. Mm-hmm. To get into an accident and then have people accuse you of doing something wrong in an accident.
Of actually killing somebody. Like that's the ultimate accusation.
The exact same thing happened to my ex-wife, and she had had the same exact accident, and they went after her for negligent homicide. Mm-hmm. And it raged on for years. Mm-hmm. And the time of stress over all of that was immense. So I feel you, because it was a very, very stressful period of time to go through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, it's an insurance game. You know, those guys are prosecuting because of insurance reasons. Those attorneys are, and they're doing it with a blatant disregard for what's happening to the other party. But geez, my hat's off to you, because that's a deep, dark hole to come out of.
It is, and I still struggle with it today, and I know that. I'm conscious of that, which is kind of the whole reason that leads me back to your initial question. Whenever it was brought to my attention, whenever this opportunity was brought to my attention from one of my business partners, I immediately connected with the opportunity, just for the fact of I'm intrigued, because I'm on this journey myself currently, of becoming the best me that I can possibly be, and I want happiness again. I want the old me back, but a more enlightened version. And so I'm doing whatever I can, every resource, every person I can talk to help me get out of this hole. I'm interested in. Plus, if I can help someone else, it's almost like some people don't realize that that what happens to them is what they tie their life to, and not realizing that what happens to them is oftentimes, and especially in my case, a avenue to be able to help so many people.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like going back into the fire after you've escaped the fire to save other people.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I'm here.
I'm listening
great
to
way to put
I'm
it.
listening to your story, and I'm just thinking, you have ventured into, as a franchisee, you ventured into the business of treating major depressive disorder using TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and neural feedback, and you are your perfect first client.
Yeah.
And you're going to be your first client.
And it was already. I actually 2 years ago. This has been a 2-year process, and you can ask Robert. When we actually flew out to Vegas for a convention for our traditional business that we
I
run.
remember.
Yeah, and so it was a Wednesday, and my partners was like, "Hey, Zion HQ. It's only two hours away. Do you want to drive up and check it out?" We were like, "Yeah, let's drive up and check it out." And we actually came to this specific location, met you and Rod, and told your story. And I was in the treatment room right across the hallway here. I told the guys, I said, if we decide to not do this financially, I'm going to be a client.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't know
awesome.
that, or I would have had you back.
Right
If
then
I
and
would have
there.
known that, I would have said, "You're not going anywhere. Get in that chair. We're going to do some work here
for sure."
Yeah, because TMS is a miraculous tool with major depressive disorders and anxiety, OCD. The other indications in front of the FDA with TMS are vastly different, but they are.
Are we actually able to reveal that?
No, we can't
Okay.
tell you what they are because
We
of
can't tell you what they are.
NDAs that we have with the Neurostar folks.
But they're exciting.
But I can tell
It's
you
top
that they
secret.
are every bit as exciting and vast in the people that they will help as MDD and anxiety and OCD. They're extremely. It's an extremely huge audience that we're about to tap into.
Well, what's really exciting is the ability to change people's lives, but have the science behind it, behind exactly what we're doing. So now when we hear like your story, it's almost like well, that's no big deal. That's easy. I mean, it's just understanding through education, like you were saying, reading books. And really, we really push, the word of the day is really, we really push education because knowledge is power. And so, if you know of somebody that's suffering, like, you've known people that are suffering, you read a book about it and how they've overcome that, adversity, then, you start to think, hey, they're human, they're sucking oxygen.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it possible for me to experience maybe just a little bit of what, the actual recovery.
That's right. With that, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. So during this period of time when you were going through this, did you ever get on medication for your depression?
No. So I was doing whatever I could to not get on medication. I believe a lot of things that sometimes is not necessarily culturally acceptable. A lot of things that people say are runs in your blood or runs in your family, stuff like that. I believe that we consciously choose to, the things that we put in our body will dramatically dictate our way of life, even down, simplistically down to food. So, but my father was an alcoholic, he threw away more six-figure jobs than I could ever imagine.
So genetically, you were prone to
genetically,
this.
my grandfather was an alcoholic. Both of my uncles, which is on my dad's side, both of them are alcoholics. They still currently are. I enjoy a drink just as much as the next person, but I can literally go years and never touch it
because you haven't turned the genes on. If they're present, that is. Yeah.
Right. I don't have, but I didn't want to get to a point where I was just a zombie. I didn't want to. I didn't want to put any chemicals in my body that was unnecessary. For me to be able to get to where I wanted to get. I wanted to try to do whatever I could as naturally and as holistically as possible.
You've got some wisdom within you to do that, because our society doesn't do that. Most of the people in our society would self-medicate in
Pill
a situation,
poppers.
especially in a situation like you've explained, yours, the trauma that you went through. Most people would seek a medication to medicate that trauma or turn to self-medication of alcohol or some kind of drug of their own, benzo or whatever it is to drown out the noise of that trauma.
Sure. And I would be remiss if I didn't, willingly say that I did this just cold turkey. I had vices. From some of them considered good. I'd be obsessive about working out in the gym or just something, whatever I could to distract myself from what I felt like my presence was, because I was so overwhelmed. Porn addiction. All these different little things that didn't feel like a major, like I'm not a drug addict or I'm not an alcoholic, right? I'm just addicted to this, and that's a good trait, or something. I'm not hurting anybody type deal. So I definitely had my own vices that I tried to drown out that just what I thought reality was, just for a minute of just relief. Almost like a distraction from life.
Sure.
Yeah, and then there's a whole another side of everything you're talking about too, especially when it comes to traumas like that. Myself, I've suffered from PTSD for years and years and years, and there's another side of that you don't want to have come out, which is this rage and anger. And I would hit places where I almost could not control my actions over rage, the rage that I felt over my hopelessness of that, and so. Self-medicating for me was the only answer. I turned to alcohol and then eventually turned to any drug that I could get, because I had to quiet it down somehow. I think it was more about I had to feel something, right? Sure. Because I wasn't feeling anything.
Yeah.
And I had a guy once that pinned me down and asked me a few questions. He said, when you drink alcohol, do you drink it when you feel good? And I said, yes. And he said, do you drink it when you feel bad? And I said, yes. He said, do you drink it when there's not really much of a feeling going on at all? Like when you're just kind of flat and mundane? And I said, yes. And he said, do you drink it because you have to feel something? And I said, absolutely. He said, that's where the problem is. That's when you're really hitting the wall. So congratulations to you.
For breaking through.
To break through that and don't go down that road.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening, this is a powerful testimony that there are other alternatives than going down that road, including coming to Zion Healing, come and get to TMS, come and get neurofeedback. These are holistic, scientific, and technology alternatives that will change your world with a very simple process that happens pretty much automatically and instantaneously once you engage in that therapy.
Right,
It's
because
fast.
you have a brain, you have an organ, and the thing is that we know the first law of learning is repetition, and so when we continue to think the same thoughts over and over again, and it's almost as if there really is such a thing as being a victim, you really were. You were the target. The pin the tail on the donkey. You were the donkey on the wall, getting pinned everywhere, and it's almost like you feel like at that point you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so the brain, and it not your fault, but the brain actually, you had the trauma. And so because of the trauma, and what trauma is the brain takes a freeze frame of something that is so outrageously not part of its life script, not part of its norm, that it all of a sudden goes, whoa, and it takes a freeze frame or a snapshot of what's going on right then and there, and it can't move past that. It doesn't process it because we're not taught how to process it right then and there. If we were, you wouldn't have gone through all of what you went through.
Absolutely.
And so the idea now is that your brain, as we know in Zion Healing Center and through the education of neuroscience and neuroplasticity and neuroendocrinology and epigenetics, that your brain is patterned to a certain way of thinking, right? And so it becomes like a hardware program. And so the idea is to unravel that by treating the cause instead of treating the symptoms, by medicating you or by sitting there and talking your way through it. I'm not saying that talk therapy is bad. I'm saying that it just takes a long time for matter to change matter by
long
just
process.
explaining it,
Long
because
process.
because the trauma is rooted in your subconscious mind. Which is manifested in the body itself at a cellular energetic level.
Absolutely.
And so we like to treat that at the root cause, which is awesome that you jumped on board and you saw that.
I didn't know that was your motivation to get in. We hadn't had that discussion, so I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it was to a point, and like I said, I mean, trauma is trauma, and it's part of this journey that I've it's been revealed to me. I would get to a point whenever I was at my darkest, and I'd like to I paraphrase. I called it like the disease of the day. My body, like you just said, my body would manifest phantom symptoms of whatever I was fearful of that day because I put so much energy and so much thought process, and I would be in a freeze state of mind, and I would develop these symptoms of that. I mean, from anything, everything was cancer, everything was death, right? I was just so fearful. At one point, I was scared to go to the mailbox because of what letters that I could be getting from someone that was trying to take everything away from me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just and when you say that to someone who hasn't went through a traumatic experience and they haven't been able to internalize and unpack some of that trauma, it sounds
you sound like
crazy.
You're nuts. Yeah.
But
you
I got to tell you,
I've
been on in my lifetime, I've been on the other end of prosecution, government prosecution to litigation prosecution, and I've been there where people that really don't understand the trauma of just that added on top of your other traumas of losing everything. Right? And you go to the mailbox and there's this letter and it's got an attorney's name on it, and I can remember these days of just shaking in my not being able to open this letter because I knew that what was inside it was going to be tragic.
Yeah, I'd tell my wife to open it because I couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. You get sick to your stomach. And just I can't do this.
My chest would get tight. I couldn't breathe that well. I mean, and that was just something so simple as checking the mailbox.
Yeah. I've been there, man. It's
same.
And so have you. Yeah. Well, TMS is. I'll tell you what, man. You're going to set the world on fire in North Carolina, and there's a lot of you folks out there that need it. That need what Michael's going to deliver in North Carolina. We're going to be doing that at your center there. Do you know
the address of the center, the first center?
4045 Premier Drive. It's actually in High Point, right beside the Palladium. Actually feels a lot more like Greensboro, which people who are local they'll
I
understand.
wrestled in Greensboro a lot.
Greensboro, yep.
Yeah.
And it does have a High Point address. Just right
we've
beside the Palladium.
We've seen all the photographs. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's incredible. We've spared
doing.
no expense. So this is our HQ. This is what we've designed. This is where we want everything. This is the epicenter of Zion Healing in North Carolina.
Nice.
I got to tell you, I mean, I can't wait to see it, but I got to tell you, looking at the pictures, I can tell that it's nicer than our office. And
we're gonna have to play a little one-upmanship.
Yeah,
I think.
I know we're gonna come out there and go.
Wait a minute.
Wait, why didn't we do that?
Well, come back and redecorate.
So I have to pat myself on the back here. I take pride in being that limb of our of my group business partners. Everything from the layout. Obviously, we all had a little input, but design wise, layout. I created the layout. I handpicked the marble countertops.
Wow.
I handpicked the color scheme of the cabinetry, of the flooring, of the color swatches for the paint. You name it.
That's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
A lot of the rock color, the swatches, everything. A lot of intricate detail. I mean, everything is purposefully put just to make you feel the number one thing that I didn't feel whenever I needed the most help was alone. And it makes we want to do whatever we can to make you feel like, hey, you're not alone, and you're somewhere where you can feel comfortable and you can be with people who feel the same way that you do.
Well, that's what I gathered from the images, the pictures you sent me. It's kind of like our center. We you know, you're going to walk in, and when you walk in, what you're going to feel immediately is, okay, this is all right. This is where I'm going to get well.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's
we
going to
care
happen,
about you.
That's
It's
right.
going to happen in this building
Yep.
versus a clinical, sterile
That's right.
environment of a therapist's office
100%.
where you don't feel that. And so I'm really, really appreciative that you listen to heed the cause on that, and listen to that message from us that we need our centers to feel like that, because that's what you've done.
Yeah.
And it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
So-
it's going to be incredible.
So the first center's High Point, and where you plan on putting the other centers?
Well, the sky's the limit. From an entrepreneur and business standpoint, I mean, I want to put one wherever I can.
Yeah.
You know, we
Awesome.
have the rights for the state of North Carolina, so we kind of preliminarily have our second location picked out. We're looking in the Asheville area.
Nice.
It's a very beautiful area.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Go right along with the brand recognition,
Yeah.
especially as far as the Veterans Affairs goes. I mean,
No
it's going
doubt.
to be able to kind of just hold together. It's going to be the mountain region of the state, but it's great area. A lot of people need help in that area, and a lot of people who are able to get help are in that area. So we just believe it's going to be a great location for us. But again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We plan on having 10 locations in the next 3-4 years.
You'll get
Awesome.
we'll get there together in partnership.
Yep.
For all those you that are listening, we you can go to the website zionhealing.com, and on that website you'll find the location for North Carolina for High Point. It's on there. It's under the locations tab. You can email us at info@zionhealing.com about the North Carolina office and when it'll open, and we'll keep you updated. You can dial 1-833-446-3733.
And that number again is?
833-446-3733. And one of our operators will take that. They'll work with you, stay in touch with you, and work towards that date when Michael opens his office. And it'll be coming up very soon.
Very soon.
Very soon. We'll get open out there, folks, and you can get in for treatment.
Wait, and the first 10 clients that come through the door, the students that come through the door, get a puppy, right? I just think everybody should have a puppy.
When you call Zion, just ask KT for the puppy, and she'll get you set right
I
up.
totally will. Everybody should have a puppy.
Well, we sure want to thank you for being here with us today, Michael. It's been a real pleasure. This week has been amazing.
Absolutely,
Thank you
I'm
so
grateful.
much.
I'm grateful to be surrounded by you guys, and I've had a conscious recharge
Awesome.
of the reason why we're doing this. We're human. We need to be. We're batteries. We need to be recharged every once in a while. And I'm grateful. This the week has been incredible, and just so passion is just come across tenfold, and I'm excited to get this thing
Coursing through your
Man,
veins.
I just want to help everybody I can.
We're going to save the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here,
Thank
Michael.
you.
We'll wrap up the show. But, folks, again, that 833-446-3733 number will get you connected with Michael in North Carolina.
But also, if you'd like to share this podcast message with friends and family, perhaps you know people that could really hear this message, you can go to our website at,
promisestofreedom.org.
what is that again?
It's promisestofreedom.org, and you can rewatch this podcast there, folks, and you can listen to it.
And please email us questions, comments. Maybe you have a question for Michael, like why he dresses so snazzy. I mean,
he's got the best
things
clothes.
like that, where
I've
he
been
buys his
admiring your
clothes.
clothes, going, I need to dress like that. Well, thanks for being with us, folks. Until we meet again next week, stay safe out there, stay sober,
And happy trails.
and God bless.
Absolutely.